Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It's a sort of blustery, chilly day here in mid-February in suburban Illinois, or suburban Chicago. I'm coming to you as I walk home from the train, and the weather is chilly but not outrageously cold. Like I said, the wind is a little blustery, so if the microphone picks up a fair amount of wind, my apologies. Well, it's been a while since I've talked to you about just some games I've been playing, so I thought that I would today go back to an old favorite format, Shootin' from the Hip, Triple Shot. For those of you new to the podcast, Shootin' from the Hip is my first impressions segment in which I talk about games I've been playing and give you a couple thoughts about them based on really just usually one play or maybe two plays. I generally don't use a Shootin' from the Hip. I don't do an episode about a game that I've played much more than that because then I start to have more nuanced discussions and we can talk about the game in another way. But I have three games that I've played in the last couple weeks that I think would be worth talking about here. So let's just jump right in. The first game I wanted to mention, I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember the name of the designer. This is Walking in Burano. Walking in Burano is a nice little card game where you're drafting or you're taking cards from a market and building a tableau with them. And then at the end of the game, you're going to score points based on a variety of elements that are on the cards. So the way the game works, there is a grid of cards available in the market. On your turn, you take one of the cards and you place it in your tableau. I think the way it works, if I recall, it's been a while, a couple days at least. You either take two cards for free, or take two cards, or you take one card and one money, or you take two money. And then when you're taking your cards, or the money does something else. Oh, the money lets you buy something. Lets you buy the scoring cards. So when you have your money, you can then use that to buy these scoring cards, and you're allowed to have up to 5 of them. And that's kind of it. You're taking cards, buying scoring cards, and building a tableau. Now the cards depict fronts of buildings. Burano is apparently a fairly famous town where the houses are these sort of row houses that are all connected and they're all painted these brilliant colors. And so the way the game works is the cards you're taking, you're building a row of 3-story houses. You get to build 5 of them, and they all have to be next to each other. And you have to take a bottom card, a middle card, and a top card for each house. And you cannot put 2 houses of the same color next to one another. You get 2 of these little scaffolding cards that will hold a spot for you. So if you, say you have a bottom card and a top card for a house, you can put one of these scaffolding cards in the middle, and that will allow you to play the top card without having acquired the middle yet. And then later, when you acquire the middle, you can take the scaffolding card out and use it somewhere else. So you have sort of permanently 2 placeholders. The game ends when someone has built all 5 of their houses. Then you finish the round. So you all have the same number of turns. And then you score. When you're scoring, you look at the scoring cards you've taken. Like I said, you can get 5 of them, 1 for each house that you built. And the scoring cards are either, some of them score for the whole town, and some of them score for just the building they're in front of. And usually it's something like score 1 point for every cat in this building, or 2 points for every combination of a couple different features. Basically, you're scoring points based on the features on the cards and the scoring cards that you buy. So the decision points of the game are just as you're assembling this tableau, you are mixing and matching which kinds of features you're buying, along with managing the colors. I thought Walking in Burano was a pretty delightful little puzzle game. It had a nice bit of interaction in that when you're watching your opponents take the cards you want, that can be a little frustrating. And there's a very limited number of those scoring cards. So like, for instance, the person who scored points for cats ended up being a really strong, or plants. I ended up building one building that had a lot of plants, and then when I went to buy a scoring card, the guy who scored points for plants was gone. I was out of them. So I ended up having to get something that was less effective. So that element is kind of neat, that you have a limit to how many, which cards are available, and a time limit in terms of how fast people build. Because to get the money to buy the scoring cards, you have to forego buying building cards, and the game is over when everyone's built. So you're balancing between the two. It's not going to set the world on fire. It's not going to be anybody's favorite game, I don't think. But Walking in Burano is a nice filler type game. Really good for beginning of a night or an end of a night, and a nice little puzzler. That's Walking in Burano. All right, the second game I wanted to talk about is another similar weight game. One of these games you can play in a half hour, 45 minutes. It's a classic from Ryan Lockett at Red Raven Games. This is Artifacts Inc. Artifacts Inc. is sort of like if you were Indiana Jones or his pals and you're going looking for things, only you're actually his friend at the museum who negotiates sale of the items for him. So like the idea is you have a team of adventurers and they can go to different places, and the more successful you are, the more adventurers you get, which allow you to go to different places. The places are all depicted on cards, and like a lot of Ryan Lockett games, you roll dice, and the value of those dice decides the value of the cards you can visit. So if you roll a whole bunch of high numbers, then you can go to particular cards. If you roll low numbers, you can go to other cards. Some of the values in the cards are specifically tied to the amount you rolled. Other values are tied to a relationship to that amount. Like it might say, put a die worth more than 3 here or something. Ultimately, it's a set collection game. You're accumulating particular kinds of treasures and then selling them. And when you sell them, that moves your marker up on this kind of majority board, which is where you'll get your points. All in all, it's like Walking in Burano, a sort of nice little aperitif, a starter game. It's got a little bit of thoughtful decision making to it, and clearly people who get the system are going to do better than people who don't. I did pretty poorly, but I had fun anyway. As with most Ryan Lockett games or Red Raven games, the art is beautiful. The cards look really nice. I'm not as big a fan of dice placement as a mechanism as some other people are. There are a couple dice luck mitigation cards that you can acquire that will allow you to adjust the value of your dice or whatever, but generally you have to use the dice you rolled and kind of make the game work with whatever you got. Like I said, it was good. So that's Artifacts Inc. from Red Raven Games and Ryan Lockett. The third game I want to talk about today is Azul Summer Pavilion. This is, of the 3 games I'm mentioning here, this is the only one that's in our collection. The other 2 were brought over by my pal, Paul. So Azul Summer Pavilion is the third game with the main title Azul from Michael Kiesling. In this one, you are placing tiles in these sort of star-shaped areas, and just like the other Azul games, you're drafting from a series of areas called factories, and you take all of the tiles of a particular color when you take them. Summer Pavilion is a little bit different than the regular Azul. It's a little more puzzly. You have a few more options when you go to play your tiles. In the regular Azul, when you take your tiles, you have to make a decision immediately about which row they're going to go into. And that can have a limiting effect later. Maybe early on you think, oh, I'm going to have a chance to get a bunch of red tiles. So you put the first 2 red tiles you draft down in the 5 spot. And then later all the red tiles are gone, and now you're stuck with 2 red tiles and nothing else in the 5 spot. That balancing element makes the regular Azul pretty interesting, but also makes it easy to really shank somebody if you're watching what they need. Azul Summer Pavilion seems to be a little more flexible that way. You have a variety of different ways that you can manipulate your tiles or where you can put them, and you can save 4 tiles from round to round without penalty. The first player marker carries a little bit more of a penalty, but it's a little less likely that somebody's going to get really stuck with a bunch of tiles from the middle, unless everybody is very hesitant, in which case then one person maybe takes a big penalty. All in all, I think I like Summer Pavilion better, but it's hard to tell because I have played it a couple times, but it is still pretty new, so we don't know the game well enough to really know how we can, like I said, shank each other. As opposed to in the regular Azul, you can really tell when you're sticking the other person with tiles they don't want. In Azul Summer Pavilion, at least until the last round, it feels a lot looser. The scoring is a bit more complex as well. You get a lot more points, I feel like, in the new game. I like the tiles are the same, sort of this Bakelite hard plastic, and they still look lovely. The boards are a beautiful depiction of sort of tiled spaces. So overall, the new Azul, it looks and plays very similar to the other one. Not quite as cutthroat, but quite a delight. So I'm enjoying it so far. That's Azul Summer Pavilion. Well, that marks the end of my shooting from the hip triple shot. The 3 new games I've played since the last time we chat. I mean, there's a couple more, but these are the 3 I wanted to talk about. I've been playing a lot of online games. I started playing on yukata.de. If you're on any of the asynchronous online platforms like Board Game Arena or Boîte à Jeux, both of those I play on already, but I've also now started playing on Yukata, in part because a friend has Bruges and wanted to try that. That's a regular listener, Voodoo Chill, or Chris Graves, who had a copy of Bruges and wanted to give it a try, so we're playing that over on Yukata. If you're interested in playing a game with me on any of those asynchronous platforms, I'm pretty good at taking at least a turn or two every day. If you'd like to join me, reach out to me. Wombat929 is my username in all of those places. Or you could email me, brendan@rattleboxgames.com. In Rattlebox Games news, we are working on a couple different projects that may see the light of day soon. We certainly have a couple games in the works that are moving along briskly. We also have a little bit more media activity that we're doing. My co-designer Rob has been working on a podcast. It's sort of a news broadcast in the fantasy world of Drag, which is the setting for Cromlech and our game Nest Egg, which we've been germinating for quite a while. And the idea is that it's going to come out pretty often, and it'll be 2 minutes long, so you'll be able to use it to brush your teeth by. We're also looking to revitalize or reignite the Game Fight Show, which is a board game trivia event that we started a long time ago. We did 1 episode and we never really did much more with it, although we do have a March Madness type event in which every day board games face off and we determine which board game is the best of all the board games. So keep an eye on Twitter if you're interested in participating in that nonsense. Well, that's just about it for me today. I thank you for joining me on my walk, and I hope that you'll head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know what new games you've been playing. Have you played any of the 3 that I mentioned, Artifacts Inc., or Walking in Burano, or Azul Summer Pavilion? How did they treat you? Until next time, thank you for joining me, and I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.